Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. In the 1980s, when the Iowa-class battleships were brought back into service, they formed core members of surface action groups, also known as battleship battle groups. This was a Reagan-era concept to expand the United States' ability to power project around the globe. At the time, we had 15 carrier battle groups. However, only about 1/3 of those carrier battle groups were deployable at any given time. Another third was receiving maintenance, and the final third was undergoing training or transitioning from an operational area to their home port or vice versa. The world of the late Cold War was dynamic, and the U.S. Navy needed more ships and more squadrons of ships that they could deploy around the world to hotspots. It would take close to a decade to build new aircraft carriers, and other smaller ships just couldn't be rearmed with modern missiles. So the Iowa-class battleships were chosen to be reactivated, equipped with modern missile and radar systems, and then made the centerpiece of battle groups that could be deployed around the world. New Jersey was actually reactivated before any of these battle groups could be stood up. And she ended up transitioning from hotspots in the Pacific to hotspots in the Mediterranean and back again before any other ships could join her. By 1986, as the other Iowas started to come online, these battle groups were formed. New Jersey was the centerpiece of Battle Group Romeo in the Pacific. Iowa had Battle Group Alpha in the Atlantic. Missouri had Battle Group Echo, also operating in the Pacific. When Wisconsin was recommissioned in 1988, she took over Battle Group Alpha from Iowa, which was being decommissioned around the same time. These battle groups had one of the Iowas as their centerpiece, with their Tomahawk cruise missiles, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, and of course their big guns. They also often featured a cruiser. New Jersey operated a lot alongside the nuclear cruiser Long Beach in the Pacific. Long Beach provided a lot of the air defense warfare for the battleship. Additionally, destroyers and frigates would escort the two larger ships from and protect them from aircraft and submarines. And resupplying ships would operate along with these groups. Oftentimes, other ships would tag in, particularly during training exercises with other allied countries. New Jersey operated a lot with Australian and British warships in the Pacific. These battle groups were fluid. They weren't always the same ships. For example, Long Beach got swapped out and ended up in Battle Group Echo with Missouri, and one of the new Ticonderoga-class cruisers, which was far better at air defense warfare with its Aegis combat system, was traded in. When the Iowas were reactivated in the 1980s, it was determined that they were not going to be used as fancy yachts for their admirals. So for this reason, the admiral's cabin was redesigned into the Combat Engagement Center. Well, this was among other reasons. There wasn't anywhere else they could find to put this stuff. But when they turned the admiral's cabin into a Combat Engagement Center, they didn't put another admiral's cabin anywhere else on the ship. They expected a more modern vessel with more modern command and control facilities to be the flagship, and the battleship was just the heavy hitter of the group. In 1989, New Jersey was selected to be the flagship of Admiral John Paul Reason, who was going to command Battle Group Romeo and a cruiser-destroyer squadron. The crew did what we call an unauthorized ship-off and converted a number of spaces on board to accommodate the admiral and his staff. This included deleting a lot of a couple of guest officer cabins near the captain's cabin in order to make an admiral's cabin. A similar conversion was done on Wisconsin. The battleship battle groups provided utility that a carrier battle group didn't have. Carriers operate far from shore, launching aircraft. Carriers are fairly vulnerable to damage from subsurface, airborne, or surface targets. And so they use their speed and the distance of their air group to stay out of danger. Sometimes when you're projecting power, though, you want your enemy to see that you are there. This doesn't work with an aircraft carrier or a flight of planes at 10,000 feet. But a battleship, with its unmatched armor plating, especially in the world of the 1980s, when ships just aren't built with armor anymore, is able to be deployed right up on a coastline. That way you see that the ship is there. And if you're still doing things that aren't in the interest of the United States, you know that you could be on the receiving end of 16-inch projectiles. One of the other jobs of the Iowas during this period was to counter Soviet surface action groups. The Soviet Union had been a primarily submarine force, but by the 1970s, they had built a number of small assault carriers that combined heavy missile batteries along with a helicopter air group. And then they took that a step further by building the Kirov-class battle cruisers, the modern equivalent of a battleship, a large nuclear-powered surface warship with a tremendous number of missiles on board, particularly anti-ship missiles. And these ships could saturate from hundreds of miles away the air defenses of a carrier battle group. By reactivating the Iowas, the United States then had surface action groups with which they could challenge the Soviet Union and their Kirov-class battle cruisers. Their missiles probably couldn't do significant damage to these battleships, but the Kirov's armor could not protect them from either our missiles or our guns if we got close enough to use them. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section down below. If you'd like to see other content like this in the future, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, check the description below for ways you can donate to the museum.